What's going on, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson here with Inside Arkansas and the Pod at the Palace, coming to you with our daily Arkansas basketball video series. And, we've got a few days here between games, so that kind of gives us the chance to get in the weeds a little bit in a few areas, just kind of based on, what we've seen so far through 3 games from the Razorbacks. And, I think we're going to have plenty of time to talk, offense, what they're doing well, what they need to work on, defense, which has been fantastic so far. We'll get to all of that. But I really think the biggest storyline to watch with the Razorbacks, at least in the immediate future here, is in regards to its depth, right? John Calipari in the offseason, he took a gamble by recruiting just that 9-man rotation. And he seems very adamant about not extending it out to, Cash Chavis or Melo Sanchez, whoever, unless it's an absolute emergency. And now we're staring at a situation here where the Hogs might be very, very shorthanded for a game or two. We don't know for sure if that's going to be the case, but it's certainly something that they're talking about and have to prepare for. And this was the risk reward, man. It was a deal where I think Cal felt like he had too many mouths to feed last year at Kentucky, and maybe it impacted chemistry, not having enough minutes to go around for everybody. And maybe he overcorrected a bit with this 9-man deal, to the point where, like we've said, you have to hit on all your evaluations. You can't have busts, you can't have freshmen who aren't ready. And then you really have to avoid injuries. And so here we are seeing what the downside of that could potentially be, because at full strength, you're rolling. You don't need more than 9. And the 9 that Arkansas has is really, really good. But if you're not at full strength, it becomes a little bit problematic. Let's start with Jonas Adu, who's been essentially injured since he got to campus. Has tried to return here, has played in 3 games now, but it's really looked like a shell of himself so far. I mean, this is a dude who's an all SEC center from last year. It was preseason all SEC again. And he's just played, a few minutes here and there. You can tell that he's just not quite right. Not yet. Wasn't even supposed to play against Troy, was like an emergency minutes only kind of guy. And I mean, they found themselves in that situation. So he had to go for a few minutes. We'll see, man. It's hard to know when we're going to get Jonas Adu at full strength. And with every game that passes with him, not looking improved in terms of getting closer to 100%, becomes a bigger and bigger storyline. Here's what Cal had to say about him after the win over Troy.
He's all healed, but you're going to have to play for the first time in a while, and you're going to have some pain. But you got to go through it and have pain. And is it too much for you to play? But I told him prior to the game, he didn't have a uniform. I said, dude, put the uniform on. I may not play you at all. I'm not planning to, but what if I need you for 5 minutes? And what did I play him? 7? And at the end, he was like 2 too many. That's where he is right now. He's probably 75%.
Yeah, I appreciate him trying to gut it out, especially when Arkansas is shorthanded. But there's a difference in being healed and being 100% and being in game shape and being, having just your full range of motion, strength back in the area that was impacted by an injury. And that's where he's lacking right now. And to me, I understand that you got to win games here in the moment, but Arkansas has to have him at full strength for SEC play. So that means shutting him down for a while and just really focusing in on rehab or whatever. Maybe that's what they need to do. And we'll see what happens with Jonas. But it's one thing, I think, to navigate one injury with this type of roster construction. It's another to have multiple, right? Especially when it's at the same position. And it's just exactly what Arkansas is looking at right now with Trevin Brazile rolling that ankle after getting off to a great start in his first start of the season. Man, he looked good in there, but then comes down, rolls that ankle, was back on the bench and everything, which is a good sign to see, but was ruled out for the second half of the game. And you know how it is. Ankles, you roll them, they swell up the next day, and you never really know how long it's going to take to recover from those. Hopefully it's not a long-term deal, but still, if it impacts the next couple games, things get really, really dicey there in terms of depth for Arkansas.
On TB, how long he might
It was his ankle. I don't know. They said it did swell a little bit, and they weren't comfortable with him going in. Because I did ask, can you give us 3 minutes so Z doesn't have to play all 20? And then I said, okay, Z has a problem. We played war games. Who's going to play the 5? And we said Adu. And you have Billy Carter. You're still pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it doesn't feel like a good thing to be 3 games in the season and talking about war games, and can I get emergency minutes out of guys who are hurt? And you know what I mean? And so that's the risk that it takes. And like if Arkansas was in this situation in the backcourt, they would still have, like we mentioned earlier, guys like Cash or Melo that they could turn to. There are no answers in the front court. They didn't go out and get a developmental big or, a guy from the transfer portal or whatever. The only guys they can practice against with any size are GAs, and they can't suit up for you. So it leaves you in a tough spot. Like, what now are they going to do if they're without both Adu and Trevin for a while? They're going to have to play with 7 and figure some things out. And you heard Cal mention it there. It means more small ball lineups, which they can get away with against some of these teams on the schedule. Like, I think Thero could handle, playing the 5 for stretches there. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. And you're going to need, he'll be a hell of a matchup nightmare on the other end, honestly. And then you're just going to need big productive minutes from Big Z like you got against Troy. But you also need everyone else to elevate their play, right? DJ Wagner, for example, you can't go scoreless, bud. And he does so many things so well, but Arkansas's got to be able to pencil in like 10 points per game from him. But in this situation, he's also a big, strong physical guard who can pick up some slack on the glass. Arkansas got out rebounded by Troy. And that's what's going to happen when, your lone forward is Big Z, who's 7'2", but he's not a big physical dominant rebounder in there necessarily. So all the guards have to pick up the slack with like one extra one per game. John L. Davis, he played the 4 for a Final Four team at Florida Atlantic. So he's a guy who's been, in that position before in terms of like, he's going to be a guard on offense, but defending bigger guys, getting in there and getting his nose in there and rebounding, playing with some physicality in the paint. He's somebody who could help you in there as well and has some experience doing it. So that's okay. But I think your next best bets, honestly, in terms of size, and length and athleticism are 2 freshmen in Billy Richmond and Carter Knox, who are going to need to step up here. It was interesting from Cal. I'm going to play the whole clip because he talked about how he might go about playing Trevin and Big Z in the future, like once Trevin's healthy. But then he also mentioned the importance of Carter and Billy really stepping up and providing some good minutes for Arkansas here in the immediate future.
Before he got hurt, and
I thought he was good.
Yeah,
I thought he was good, and he was fighting. And so we got to figure out if he needs to be in, do we play he and Z together? Do we sub like I did, where they each play 20 minutes and then maybe together 5 minutes, so they play 25 minutes each? Do we do that? I was playing guards way too many minutes at Baylor. We let go of the rope at the end of the game. It's a 3-point game, shooting layups and throws and turnover. Well, they played 20 straight minutes. You can't do that. So I need Billy and Carter to give us some minutes, but they got to give good minutes or you can't do it. I thought Billy was good today. I think Billy impacts the game. He does it with his athleticism. He does it with his toughness, his defense, his ability to come up with balls. But
it is kind of hilarious to me to hear, Cal talking about you can't play your guards that many minutes. And it's like, bro, you recruited the roster this way. Like it was never going to go a different direction based on how you built this thing. But I do understand what he's saying about just needing to get more in terms of minutes and production out of those 2 freshmen, because then that kind of lengthens your lineup. And it allows you to take, you have to play DJ 38 minutes, maybe you play him 33. Just little things like that matter. One rotation here or there keeps guys fresh for the end of games. And that's what he's talking about. I'm with Cal. I think Billy's looked really good the last few games and has earned, probably some more minutes. He's going to have to play him here moving forward. He's so good in transition, impactful defensively, great getting to the rim. Not so great when he's settling for long too, is the more he plays, the game's going to slow down for him and he'll start settling in offensively. But I'm also with him on Carter, which is a situation where, like you need more out of those guys, but they have to produce for them to get it. And he said a little bit later, he was very bullish, saying, listen, trust me, Carter Knox is going to factor into this. And I'm glad he said that because he hasn't gotten off to a great start here, but he's super talented. And I think the point here is he kind of was in a situation where, yeah, it'd be great to get you some confidence and, kind of force the issue in terms of getting you going and everything like that. But you also got to coach to win games is what Cal said. And, they've been in some tough ones here. And so maybe that's impacted his minutes a little bit. Well, now he doesn't really have a choice. Like he's going to have to get him in there. So to me, this might be the best opportunity for Carter Knox to be able to settle in, play through some mistakes, and get himself going a little bit, because I do think he's one of the X factors for this team offensively, especially, and he's actually been pretty decent on the defensive end. So I'm going to be really interested to see what they do with him. It might be unorthodox here for a game or two in terms of lineups, and they might have to just manage things a little bit differently than they anticipated. Obviously, you have to avoid injuries anymore, knock on wood that they don't have any more of that. But then you also have to be really smart about fouls without sacrificing the intensity and the aggressiveness that's made Arkansas so good defensively. They're number 7 in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency. They've been so good on that end of the floor, but you don't want to be so worried about foul trouble when you're struggling with depth that it takes away from that. Here's Cal's idea on how they might navigate it.
Extremely hard. We ended up having 7 players. So this week, we go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I got to put the zone in, like our own zone. Why would I go to zone? We got basketball bennies in here.
You can't afford to get in foul trouble.
There you go. We're in foul trouble, and I don't have any subs. Better go zone. But you better not just say, yeah, just stand there and wave your arms. We need to teach them how to play the zone and how we would play it.
Listen, I'm telling you guys right now, I'm calling my shot. This ain't happening. They're not going to do it. John Calipari does not run a zone. The only time I've seen them run a zone is when he got ejected from Bud Walton Arena and Kenny Payne put it on Arkansas and came back and won that game. I don't think he's going to do this unless, and so I do think, all jokes aside, it makes sense for him to take some time in practice to put this thing in case they need it, because I think the way Arkansas would actually play a zone defense is if they find themselves in a situation where Cal has to choose between implementing it and throwing it out there or having to go to one of your walk-ons, down the stretch of a close game because of foul trouble. And so I think it's like, break this glass in case of emergency. That's when you throw out that zone. And so I know people heard that and they're like, what? Really? They're going to do this? I would be absolutely floored if Arkansas, comes out against Pacific and is immediately in a zone defense. I don't think that's what he's talking about. But you got to have it in your back pocket just in case. So maybe they've learned their lesson of, not really being able to work on zone offense. And then you see it against Baylor and you're not prepared for it. Well, hopefully they take some practice time to really work on the zone defense so they know what they're doing in the event that they have to turn to it in a game. But it's going to be fascinating to see how Arkansas navigates this. And hey, maybe TB woke up feeling great this morning and he's going to be full go for Monday. Just don't know. And obviously it was one of the bigger talking points in the post-game press conference after the Troy game of, well, how are you going to navigate this if you're down to 7 guys for a little bit here? Because the same as Jonas Adu, you got to be really careful about, especially with an ankle like that, bringing a guy back too early before they're 100% and just kind of getting a short-term Band-Aid that could impact you, negatively in the long term. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but hey, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, we'll just continue to tackle this from a couple different angles throughout the course of the weekend. And then obviously we'll get you primed up for the specific game on Monday, but it's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas and the pod at the Palace. Everybody have a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow.